I'm U.S. Senator Katie Britt, and this is the elephant in the room.
Welcome to the Elephant in the Room. I'm your host, Cyrus Pearson.
I'm your co-host, Sophie Delquier.
And our guest today was U.S. Senator Katie Britt, U.S. Senator from Alabama. You can see there on the graphic if you're watching on YouTube.
Or Rumble.
Or Rumble. One of the things, you just have limited time to have a conversation. You know, a podcast is a long format. You do get to talk a little more.
We could have gone forever.
Yeah, and I my personal opinion, we had a great conversation today. What'd you think?
I thought it was awesome. It was a lot of fun. It was a great look into who she is as a person.
Yeah, to get to hear her talk as a regular person, just priceless.
Totally
they don't have
priceless.
to pay for it.
You don't.
So
you don't have to pay for it.
Priceless.
We appreciate the ratings and reviews, but, a like and subscribe.
Oh, yeah, let's push that in early. There's your call to action. Let's take a listen to U.S. Senator Katie Britt from Alabama. Senator Katie Britt from the great state of Alabama, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you all for having me. I'm excited to be here.
It's exciting to see you in this role because I remember when you were a staffer.
Right? We worked together.
I know. And when you were elected to the Senate, I looked back at my emails and there were a bunch where it was like, can we come by? And I was like, we're kind of busy. And she's won the long game. She has won the long game.
I had no idea. That's amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. So I worked with Shelby, obviously worked in the press department, which, by the way, did not go to school for that at all. So when I got put there, I thought, well, now how is this going to work? But yeah, I got an opportunity to work with you and everybody up here. And so it's neat to be back.
What did you intend to do after school?
So I came here as an intern, and interestingly, I interned for Shelby through a class credit, right? So, my dad's not a political donor. My mom didn't have the opportunity to go off to school. She had to work. And so me ending up, in his office in the internship was really kind of sort of a game changer for me long term. But it was in the very building. He had 110 Hart. That was his office. And now I am on the 5th floor of Hart, which is just kind of like to see my name on the door there is just still
wild.
Surreal. Sincerely. Yeah. But after school, when I had interned for him, he said maybe 3 words to me the whole time. And at the end, he came up to me and he said, they say you come early and you stay late. And I said, I had to literally be like, look around. We've now quadrupled the number of words he said to me in one setting.
You're like, is that bad?
Yeah.
Am I in trouble?
And I said, yes, sir. And then he said, they say you think... He said, they said, you have a good attitude no matter what they give you. And I'm sure that you'll see this, but people come in to intern, right? And you think you are going to be a part of, writing legislation that creates world peace. And the truth is you are updating the Christmas card list and you are making copies.
That's right.
And so he was like,
important work.
Right? And so he was like, you have a good attitude no matter what they give you. And I said, yes, sir. And then he said, they say you think down the road and around the corner and you have things prepared they haven't even asked for yet. And I said, yes, sir. And then he was just silent. And he said, you can come back. And so I never intended on working in DC, but thought, what an opportunity to be able to come back. And who knew that doing my job, coming on time and having a good attitude and trying to think about how I could contribute, the basic things that you're supposed to do would end up changing the trajectory of what was possible for me. And so I thought if this senior senator, who, he was former chairman of intelligence, chairman of banking, would be the chairman of APROPS, was giving me a shot to come and learn. Then I convinced my parents that I said, let me go do this for a year. And then my dad said, I wanted to go to law school. My dad was like, you'll never go back to law school if you do that. And I said, I promise you I will. I promise you I will. And so came up here meaning to do it for a year. And it was funny because my parents were like, just don't get sucked in. just and look at where we are now.
You can't get much deeper.
Yeah. So I thought that I would practice law and do that type of thing, but this really, and I did do that for a while, but he gave me a shot, and I thought I couldn't pass it up, and then learned a tremendous amount and got to work with you. So there you go.
Well, that's the low light of your experience. And we are referring to the former Senator Richard Shelby, and you took his seat?
I did. Okay. I actually have his desk on the floor. It's really special.
Wow.
I mean, I worked for him obviously there after school. So, Sophie, from 2004 to 2007-ish. Then I ended up going back and working for Dr. Witt, who was the president of University of Alabama at the time, Roll Tide. And he, speaking of the elephant in the room, and then ended up getting married and moving to New England, where my husband was playing for the Patriots, which was an interesting out-of-body experience. I mean, things I thought I would never say, that I was a member of the Patriots Wives Club, right?
Yeah.
And then ended up coming back to Alabama and went back to law school with a newborn and an 11-month-old. So literally on the scale of bad ideas I've had in my life, that one takes the cake. Ended up practicing law and then coming back and working for Senator Shelby as his chief of staff. So kind of got two.
So lots of back and forth. I didn't realize that.
And he and he taught me a tremendous amount and was always really quick to empower women to achieve. And even when I left here as his chief and went back to run, I was CEO of the Business Council, he said, he believed in what was possible for me before I did. He said, you could win this. And I thought, that's really nice of you to say, but sure. But continued to be one of my biggest champions and just learned a tremendous amount from him and his wife, Dr. Shelby. So, yeah.
Let's get a little more granular with some of these things.
Okay.
Mother's Day is coming up, so this will be released right around then. I have a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old and can accomplish nothing at home. How the
Those
heck?
are tough ages.
They're tough.
They're tough ages.
How the heck did you get through law school with 2 young kids at home?
Honest to gosh, when I look back at that, I think, how in the world did we do that? Because at the time, too, my husband went back and got his MBA. So we are both going back.
Wow.
I mean, literally, I remember one time in school, they call you, your child has a fever. You have to immediately go get
all
them.
The time.
I couldn't miss torts. So I remember running to the daycare, getting Ridgeway, coming back, and literally taking him into class with me. So I will never forget Professor Lyon's grace and she letting me bring him in. I put him down underneath, under the table, and I'm laying this 6-month-old, please don't, and making sure that he, and you just kind of sort of think, how do we make this work? And then, I go back to, we just April 27th, 2011 was a day that our family will never forget. And obviously we just, recognized 13 years since that has passed. And that was the day that tornado hit Tuscaloosa. And so it was the day before exams. And by the grace of God, I'm here with you. And my husband and my children and my family, my friends are safe, but we lost our house and our things and our cars and all of that. And so interestingly, after that, everybody else in the school, any graduate program or undergrad got to not take exams, but the law school had to take exams. So I remember trying to kind of file insurance stuff, work on that, clerking in Birmingham, taking the kids to my childcare facility didn't open early enough for me to get to Birmingham, me having to get new books. I didn't have my outlines. I mean, literally everything, blew to Kansas. And so trying to kind of sort of do that, studying, my husband had gone to study abroad. I felt very strongly that was part of the program he was in, that he needed to do that. And so trying to do all of that, I mean, thank goodness for family.
And he was international.
Yeah. And so then also working, from 1 to 3 in the morning, studying, and sleeping for 2 hours and going and then clerk. In hindsight, I wonder how I did do that. And that's one of the things that I've brought into the Senate too, is just, the cost of childcare and how we were able to make that work and looking at where it is now, and making sure we're drilling down on those issues that real families are dealing with. Because we're literally, no matter what sector we're in, every single one of us are just trying our best to make it work and want to provide opportunities for our children. But trying to do all of these things is truly challenging. So
yeah, and I would say any parent who has a young kid is dealing with something not on that level where they're losing their house to tornadoes. That was devastating. Everybody can go back online and look at that. Let's get into childcare, but how do you deal with stress in general? I mean, I would have been falling apart having
Same.
a nervous breakdown at all that stuff.
Yeah.
You
know,
seem so calm and collected all the time.
really
I mean, do you not let the
appreciate
stress
that.
get to
I
you, or do
really
you deal with it
appreciate that.
internally?
Or do you thrive on it? Some
Yeah.
people they just power through and go into like survival mode.
I think we all do. I mean, I've been really honest even about kind of my challenges here in the Senate. So the first, I've been here 16 months now, but I'd say the first 6 to 8 months, I really struggled. And a great deal of that was just like my mama heart, as a wife and a mom, being away from home, trying to figure out like, how do you tell your daughter that you're going to miss her middle school graduation? Now we may not remember our middle school graduation now, but like in the moment, it's a big deal. Or how are you, not there when your son either achieves or has a bad day, and so trying to figure out like kind of sort of how to make that work was something that I really had to lean into. But then you think about the sacrifice of like our servicemen and women who are gone for months on end and never know if they'll have the opportunity to return home, or that mom that is working 2 jobs, or the dad that has the late shift, or the truck driver that's gone for weeks. And so it just shows you we're really all giving and sacrificing and doing. And it's really, for the next generation. But for me, obviously, my faith and relying on the Lord, both in reading the word and prayer and like daily devotion and all of the things. And then I am grateful, obviously, for, I've got a wonderful spouse that I can, work through all of this. And like we approach things as a team. My family is wonderful. My parents and, sisters, the whole thing. And then my friends. I go walking in the mornings at 5:15 with my friends.
Wow, good on you.
Yes, yeah. So when I'm home on Mondays and Fridays, that's where I want to be, either that or work out with a friend of mine in her driveway, which is really
fun.
pretty fun. People are like, wait, in a driveway? I'm like, driveway. Yeah, it's great. She's
Down to the roots.
She's amazing.
What do you push the car out to the street and push it back in?
If she listens to this and she hears that will 100% be on the list of things that she'll have me do.
I want to see that on Instagram.
But like I call it my walking group, and I think everybody needs one of those in life. People that are there for you, people who show up when you don't even know that you need them. And so really grateful for that group of women to be able to talk about anything under the sun, but also know that somebody's got your back, and that whether it's your greatest achievement or it's the most challenging day, they're going to show up, and in the South, with a casserole, and be there. So I am really grateful for that too, and enjoy those 5. We walk 4 miles in about 53 minutes. 51
I love
minutes,
it.
yeah.
You've got a good support system with family and friends. You exercise. Your faith, the Lord is not going to give you more than you can handle.
That's right.
That
More
helps
than you can
through
handle
all
with
this.
Him. That's exactly right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to get into things not so serious, some a little serious, but you had mentioned affordable quality childcare, and that's one of your priorities, and not something I ran into until I became a parent. And I'm not going to degrade my wife's salary here. I'm going to say how much we had to pay for childcare. And at some point, we just had to have a discussion. Is it worth it to continue working to send all the money to our childcare provider?
I've heard the same thing.
And I'm thinking this probably takes a lot of women out of the workforce. And then you don't contribute to your 401k. You don't have the health insurance. You have a gap between when you're trying to go back to work when your kids are old enough.
That's right.
Do you think there are some solutions to this? What are you thinking?
Absolutely. And I think you just nailed it. I'm going to take you on the road with me because that's it. And so one of the things that I have really tried to approach this, my tenure in the Senate is, obviously building meaningful relationships with my colleagues, because nobody gets anything done alone, and I believe if those relationships are going to be meaningful, they have to be built on trust and respect. And so I have said, we've got to have a lot of tough conversations in this country, right? And if those tough conversations are ever going to yield solutions, they're going to have to be honest. And you're never going to have an honest conversation with someone that you don't both trust and respect. So trying to approach my relationships with my colleagues on both sides of the aisle with that is something I've been really intentional about. And my team jokes, because I'm like, if I give somebody my word, we're going to do it or die trying. trying. So, just, you want that type of reputation so people want to work with you. But also knowing that I do have a unique voice. I mean, as the youngest Republican female ever elected to the U.S. Senate and the only Republican female with school-age kids in the whole Senate, there is one. Here she is. And, making sure that I'm unafraid to speak directly into issues like this, issues that I have just dealt with or issues that my sisters are dealing with. I mean, I have a sister that went through a very similar, she was up in the Northeast and childcare and how are we going to do this and how do we make it work? And now we have two. And then myself, how we did it and the struggles that kind of created and the cost and all of those things. So I have been working with one of my colleagues across the aisle and been working diligently on ways to figure out how do we support parents and obviously not create entitlement, but an encouragement for
to have more kids too, for people to really build a family. I mean, I'm not there yet, but I'm thinking about it and I'm like, when are you financially ready if everything is so expensive?
That's exactly
right. And
right.
it's such a discouragement from people actually starting a family. And we do.
And also too, I have said I believe no child's zip code should determine their opportunity. But when you look at this and you look at, childcare deserts, so to speak, and you look at the cost and all of these things, so we're trying to really drill down deep and figure out we don't want to just put a Band-Aid,
right.
What is the root cause? How do we start to approach this? So that's something that please, be on the lookout for that because we will be rolling something out before too long to where we really hope that we help parents. For those people who have the opportunity and want to stay home, I think it is just such a wonderful and incredible thing for those men and women who do want to be able to, move into the workforce. We want to provide that pathway. So opportunity, and to your point earlier about workforce and when how do we do these things? So we're looking at that right now, and I'm excited to be rolling something out that I think will be very effective.
Love a good teaser.
You got it.
I love it.
Yeah, I imagine the other side of the aisle is really on board as well.
I think this is something I often say that, where we share a common goal with somebody on the other side of the aisle, even if we have a different idea of how we achieve that goal, it's worthy of getting in the room and trying to see if you can find a path forward. There are some issues where we actually don't share a common goal. And, for those, that's a very different conversation. But certainly we all want to make childcare more affordable. And so I just want to make sure that it's common sense, a common sense solution that doesn't create more entitlement, but yet creates opportunity for young parents and families to grow and to also achieve.
We have. Did you want to go ahead, Sophie?
Well, you
I'm
mentioned
dominating here.
No. You mentioned your son's name, Ridgeway.
Yes,
and I think that's such a beautiful name.
Thank you.
And you have a daughter
named Bennett.
Yes, those are really unique names.
Thank you. Well, when you're Katie, okay, so think about this. So when I grew up, there were 18 Katies.
Yes.
I kid you not.
Great point.
It was Katie B, Katie R, Katie S, Katie 1, Katie 2, Katie 3. My very best friends in high school. Sally and Katie, she goes by Katie Buck, and I went by Katie Boyd. And it was one word. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally.
So it would be just like Katie Buck, Katie Boyd. And so that has always, stuck with me. There always had to be a distinguisher after my name because there were so many, which I learned to love, but certainly wanted them to have something that was a little bit more unique to them.
Yeah.
They're both family names. And so my husband and I really were super far apart on my daughter's name.
Oh, really?
I am telling you,
I love it.
I mean, I'm talking about real far, and I will hesitate to actually tell you because it may be someone's name that's listening, and so I certainly don't want to. But we could not come to an agreement. So then when we sat down and we went through a family tree and we were looking at all of this, there was a Mary Bennett and this, and he was like, "I like it."
That's
and I
smart.
Thought, I do too. Well, then that's it. So her name is Bennett Elizabeth, and Elizabeth was my middle name. And then our son's name is Ridgeway Thomas, and Ridgeway was my dad's middle name.
Oh.
And his uncle's name, his favorite uncle, Uncle Way is what they called him. But my dad, I'm one of 4 girls, so he clearly didn't have the opportunity to pass that along. And so it's a neat thing. And his name is Ridgeway Thomas, and Thomas is Wesley and Wesley's dad's middle name. So
nice.
They both are full circle family names, and I always wondered if they would like their name.
I was going to ask that.
Right?
Yeah.
Does it fit and do they like it?
They do. And so we call, Bennett, I'll call her B, and Ridgeway, he gets Ridge from some people, they'll call him Ridge. And then we call him Roe a good bit because his sister, with them being 11 and a half months apart. Talk about like
pretty close. Pretty close.
Yeah, pretty darn close. There's 2 weeks where they're the same age, and I kid you not.
Wow.
It never fails. Like we'll have one, when they were little, like we'd take them out to eat. So about your children's age, you can imagine the 2-year-old, someone saying like, "How old are you?" In the birthday, and I too, very. And so then they would ask her, "Oh, how old is she?" And she'd say, "Oh, I too." They're like, "Oh, she's confused," and we're like,
No.
No.
Oh my goodness.
So, but he loves, so she could only get, I guess she kind of combined Ridgeway and brother, and she called him Roro. So sometimes we'll call him, B and Ro, and then some people call him Ridge, but
I love that.
But they do.
That's really nice.
They
Yeah.
love
That
their
is so
names,
fun.
and it's kind of cool to have the family, the family tradition. carried
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really nice.
Yeah.
Now that I have kids, I could listen to this all day. Beforehand, I didn't really care that much, honestly. But now it's like, this is my jam. Speaking about being far apart, you're what, 5'4"?
Yeah.
Your husband, he's
I love that you gave
out
me
of
the
the
four.
fives. He's out of there.
Yeah, he is out of the fives. He is 6'8", 320.
He's a little bigger than you.
Just a tiny bit. We did a commercial right at the beginning.
Okay.
And I forget how big he is,
You
right?
had to stand
Yeah, you
10
get
feet in
used to
front
it.
of him.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
even when he played in New England, like I thought, okay, we're going to see him amongst, equal giants.
Yeah.
Because he is an actual, like,
No, he's big.
He's so, like if we go eat somewhere and I'm like, oh, my husband's coming, and just tell him, and they're like, okay, what does he look like? I'm like, he's
Huge.
He's an actual giant.
Can't miss him.
He's an actual giant. So can't miss him. Can't miss him. But we did a commercial right at the very beginning, and it was a really good one. It was fun to shoot, and it was, it kind of was zoomed in on him, and he was like, I've played with, tough people, and then, but the toughest person I've ever met is 5'4", and it kind of zooms out,
Yeah.
and then you can see that I've been in the screen the whole time, but you just couldn't see me. So yeah.
How did you guys meet?
Okay, so he was.
You looked down?
Yeah.
Just kidding.
That's it. So I went to orientation, and listen to this. So my mom
At the University of Alabama?
at the University of Alabama, which I loved, by the way, just a little side note, watching them, the students on campus with American flags chanting USA, USA. Oh, it just such a proud moment. I mean, clearly everyone has the right to protest, but you certainly don't have the right to denigrate and intimidate others. But I loved seeing their response to this.
Being proud of their country.
And,
patriots.
yes. I mean, I'd never been more proud to say Roll Tide than
Just a
than
little
that.
background for our listeners. We're talking about the anti-Semitic, pro-terrorist protest mobs that have been quite violent on our college
That's
campuses.
right.
so.
That's right. And to see the opposite of that in Tuscaloosa was a really proud
Yeah.
moment. So,
Yeah.
yes. So, okay. So I go to orientation. I am the oldest of 4 girls, as I mentioned. My mom is super tough love. Okay.
Okay.
She, like our friends, my sister's friends called her Stone Cold, if that tells you anything. Okay. So she sends me to orientation and to move into my dorm by myself. Yeah.
No.
And she was like, if you can't handle this, you have no business. Like I was going to be, doing the honors program and doing this and she was like, if you can't do this, you have no business going off to school. So there I am by myself at orientation. Everybody else's parents are with them. And I am kind of terrified because most of the people from my hometown went to Auburn because I lived like down in the bottom of Alabama. There were very few going to, like 3 of us that went to Tuscaloosa, but I was there by myself and I knew no one. And finally a friend of mine like comes up and says, hey, oh, hey, Katie. And it was a guy, Matthew Sanders, that I'd met. And I was like, oh my gosh, I was so excited to see a familiar face. The first person that I meet that he introduces me to is Wesley Britt. And so we talk and I'm like, okay. And, okay, then we go to register for classes and the honors kids and the athletes get to register first. I won't tell you which one of them get priority in Tuscaloosa. But so we're sitting there and I walk out of registering and another football player stops me. So and he says, hey, I'm Justin Smiley. And Justin ended up playing, obviously, with Wesley. Then he played in Miami. He had a successful career. But Justin was like, hey, do you mind, are you about to leave? I'm like, yeah. He's like, you mind giving me a ride home? And my friend, and in hindsight, why would I ever give this guy's like, what, 6'5"? I mean, like, I don't even know these people, but I'm like, yeah, sure. He said, well, just wait on my friend. Well, around the corner comes Wesley. And so he's like, this is Wes Britt, 5-star, All-American, going through his stats. So then I end up with 3 of them. Another in my tiny little, I had a Firebird. Let's talk about that for a second. But don't you worry, Cyrus, with some T-tops, okay?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
The only way.
Heck yeah, bust those out and stick them in the trunk.
Did you have the eagle on the front?
I should have. That we should have. If I could go back, like we would just go full eagle, right? So I get all of those guys in my car. I mean, not one of them could fit. I mean, there's only 2 doors. Do you understand? Like these are 3, and Evan Mathis was the other one. Evan ended up playing for the Eagles. He played for the Cardinals. I mean, he had a wildly successful career. Go Google those 3 guys, and I fit them in a 2-door. Yeah, okay, it doesn't make any sense. So I drop them off. Well, turns out they had their car there. I didn't even, but I drop them off at their thing, and then I go to my first class in Tuscaloosa. First class, who's in it? Wesley Britt. Wesley and I became best friends. We went to lunch together every Friday, all 4 years of school. And interestingly, I look back in hindsight, like I would not miss that. It didn't matter what was on the calendar. I was the Student Government Association president, which is like a whole nother thing. But I had a board of trustees meeting, and I told them that I couldn't stay for lunch with the board because I had lunch with Wesley.
Aww.
And in hindsight, I'm like, what in the world? And
you weren't dating. You had no idea at that point.
We dated other people,
Wow.
like just best friends. And actually on that day, the university president was like, I'm ready to get out of here too. Can I come with y'all? And I was like, sure, come on, buddy. Yeah, we would go. I think we went to Olive Garden that day. It was really good.
Unlimited breadsticks.
Exactly. And the Alfredo dipping sauce.
Yeah,
you got to
can't
like
miss
get in
it.
there with that. But yeah, so we were best friends for 7 years before we ever dated. And it actually, Richard Shelby, he went to every county every year, and Wesley, they had lost the AFC championship, and Wesley called me and said, hey, can I pick you up in New England? Like, you drive down with me to Alabama so I don't have to ride this whole way by myself. I'll fly you back. And I said, normally I would absolutely do that. And I said, but with Shelby, in the state, and so we'll be in Mobile. Well, that night, Shelby decided that he did not want to stay in Mobile. He was like, I'm ready to get home. So we all obviously have to, the whole caravan heads to Tuscaloosa. And Wesley had 2 brothers that played at Alabama. He was visiting his younger brother in Tuscaloosa. So he had driven to Tuscaloosa. We ended up in the same place. The next day, my cousin was really sick, and Wesley had become close with them through our friendship. And he took me to see them after I finished work the next day. And lo and behold, we started dating. That was in February. My uncle asked him where he was going to take me when we were visiting my cousin at the hospital. He said, where are you taking her next week for her birthday? And he said, well, she'll be back in D.C., and I said, no, I'll be in Huntsville with Richard Shelby next week. And so he came back. He took me to dinner for my birthday. So February 2nd was our first date. And you'll love this. The restaurant he picked, guess who they set right next to us? Richard Shelby.
No.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
So
on
we,
your first date?
Yeah. So we did not stay there long. We did not stay there long. We're like, we're going to have to move tables. Move tables. But yeah, then we got engaged in June and then got married the next March.
Wow.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah. So I truly got to marry my best friend.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
We have unfortunately limited time here. I wanted to touch on just a couple things. I'm sorry we have to jump all over the place.
Oh man, yeah, let's
it's
do
nice
it.
having just such a real conversation.
Yeah,
it's
fun.
And you can go
Thank
everywhere
you.
else to hear the real newsy stuff.
That's right.
I think one of the things that people are trying to scare Republicans about, because you can look at your State of the Union. If you look at the substance of that, there is a lot to bite off there.
Yeah.
And a lot of room, I think, arguably for improvement. One of the scare tactics is to have people believe something like IVF is at risk.
That's right.
Do you want to talk about that? Is anybody talking about that?
Absolutely. Listen, and that's what you see the left do. If when they begin to attack, when they begin to try to erode a foundation, it's because they are worried or particularly when it comes to the State of the Union, my dad always told me that if you're over the target if you're taking on flack. And so being able to do that and speak directly to the issues. And just like you said, there is so much there that Joe Biden is not doing, and so much room to improve for this nation. And when you look to particularly about the IVF issue, I was really pleased to be able to say that IVF is pro-life and pro-family. And I will make sure, fighting every day to make sure that people have an opportunity to bring children into this world. We all, I just appreciate the miracle that is life. And we certainly want to make sure that we're judicious and mindful of all of those things. But allowing, families to grow and being a part of that is something that I'm going to continue to fight for. And there is nowhere across the country where people do not have access to IVF. And so it's just simply a scare tactic by the left. It's something that they want to try to whip up and, make into something that it's not. And I'm proud to say that that is protected in the great state of Alabama.
So to be overly clear, in vitro fertilization is not at risk.
No, not at all. And we'll continue to make sure that that is the case. I mean, let me tell you something. I said when I ran for the Senate that I am a mama on a mission, and I mean it. And I understand how critically important this is to women, families, growing them. And so, I'll keep fighting to make sure that that is exactly the case, but it is absolutely not at risk, and we'll make sure that it stays that way.
Right. I've got one more thing I want to bring up as we go to a close. But Sophie, I'm so sorry to dominate
go
her.
ahead. No, go ahead.
Your staff let us know that you are good at impressions.
Oh, gosh.
Is this true?
Oh, man. You know what? I have been known to have a good one or two.
Really?
I have.
Well, let's warm you up.
I don't know. Oh, gosh, no.
Do you have,
no.
You can just tell us a story. You have a story,
does
apparently.
somebody have a nickname for you, Joan?
Oh, gosh. Yes. Oh, that is hysterical.
What is it?
Okay. Okay, yeah, because we're gonna have to really warm up. Maybe the next time I come in, I can do my impressions. I've actually got some really good ones.
Okay, we'll have to do a second episode.
You're really teasing us here.
Yeah,
you really want to come back.
I
sounds
do.
like.
I absolutely do. We'll talk about childcare.
Okay.
And maybe we can do that.
Okay.
Yes. So this is so good. So I mentioned that, just trying to kind of sort of get my feet under me in the Senate and, build those relationships. And one of the people who's been really intentional about halfway through the year, Lindsey Graham, had said something to me like, what do you do? How's this going? Da, da, da. And I mentioned to him, oh, well, I go home, I FaceTime with my kids. He's like, what do you eat? What do you cook? I'm like, no, I don't cook. I just eat a lean cuisine. And he was like, you do what? And I was like, I eat a lean cuisine. And he was like, goodness gracious.
Not even takeout.
Yeah. He was like, I don't feel bad often, but I feel bad right now. And so he then.
It's 300 calories.
Yeah. He was then just really intentional about just trying to create opportunity for me to learn and grow. And he took me on a Codell. There were 5 Ds and 5 Rs that went to Israel after October 7th.
Right.
And we obviously, given the dynamics, we touched down in Saudi. And as we were touching down in Saudi, because that's where we needed to stay to go to Israel during the day, came back. We ended up then went to Egypt and came back. But when we're touching down in Saudi, and, I'm still the new kid. And by the way, when I got here, I was 100 out of 100. So I tell people, if you want to know what the bottom of the Senate looked like here it is. But I noticed that the gentlemen were all suiting back up, and I kind of thought, oh no, I read what we're doing, and I thought we were going straight to the hotel so I could change there. And Lindsay said, he said, are you wearing that? And I had gotten these new joggers, and I was real proud of them, right?
Joggers?
I had on joggers, and I was
like sweatpants or cargo?
Yeah.
Tied around
sweatpants.
the ankle?
Yeah.
Okay.
I had some joggers on, right? But all these guys are suiting back up, so I kind of was like, uh-oh. And when he was like, are you going to wear that? I thought he was talking about my joggers. And I was like, well, these are new. But I was like, and I'm like, and by the way, they're in right now.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah. So I was like, well, yeah. I said, I'm so sorry. I said, I can see if they'll give me my bag. I can maybe change in the, he was like, I'm not talking about that. He was like, I'm talking about that. And I'm like, that? And I said, oh. are you talking about this? And he was like, yeah, the cross you can see from space. And I was like, well, yeah, I'm going to wear it. And he goes, you're going to wear that into Mecca? And I go, yeah, into Mecca. And he goes, oh, okay, well, it's been nice knowing you, Joan. And so from that point forward, you will hear him call me that day. He coined me Joan of Arc. And so even when we met with the Crown Prince, he said, last but not least, I want to introduce you to, and he said, Joan of Arc. So it is funny. We walk around and you'll hear him go, "Hey, Joan."
That is hilarious.
That was the moment. You're gonna wear that into Saudi.
I never thought about that.
Into Saudi, I'm gonna wear it. Yes, I am. So it's been a fun nickname, and
that is amazing.
Certainly a good story.
Well, good for you. I didn't think about that. That would be something that maybe would give them pause, or like, you know, it's just because it's so normal to us.
Right. Right. Yeah. So it was a good moment. And here I thought he was talking about my joggers. Yeah. Here I thought he was talking about my joggers.
He's like, I know those are trendy.
Like, these are new. Yeah. And I'm really trying here.
I have a stance on joggers too. They're not for me. I don't mind them on other people. I don't mind them.
One last thing on impressions, which we can warm up for next time.
Okay.
You know, I think it's very flattering and a compliment that this is who they chose to portray you on SNL.
Oh, right.
She did an impression of you.
Scarlett Johansson.
We got to figure out.
I'm so here for it.
You got to do an impression of her.
Let me tell you. Okay, that's what, obviously when we were, talking to our children after all of it. And that's what it was the first thing out of my husband's mouth to my daughter when she was like, Dad, Mom's the cold opening on Saturday Night Live. Yeah. And he was like, sweetheart, look. They didn't have some random cast member play your mother. He was like, they brought somebody. He was like, it wasn't even.
She's iconic.
She's like, she wasn't even the host. He was like, it wasn't even like, a C list or B list. He was like, they brought in the top of the top. Yeah. It was like Scarlett Johansson to play your mom. And so it was so funny. She was like, Dad. And he was like, no, I mean, seriously, they had to get an Avenger. She's the Black Widow.
So true.
So I have been saying, I hope that sticks. Like I could be like the Black Widow. Do you know what I mean?
We should do it. I think we should do our own version.
I think we just go for it. Yeah. I really do.
This is the problem. Cyrus apparently looked up dialogue. He looked up like her lines to find one that you could really nail. Well, she doesn't have many actually.
Oh, dang it.
Really attractive, but it doesn't really.
Okay, well, I'm gonna have to. We'll have to dig into that. I'm gonna have to really Don't you feel like that'd be like a good Senate nickname if people are like, she's the Black Widow?
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm like coming for you, by gosh, I'm coming for you, and at least I'm like. Yeah. Eyeballs, you know what I mean?
I'm intimidated that you did that.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I'm like. I am really nice, but like if you mess with me, I will cut
you. Go Black Widow.
That's right. That's right. But the good thing about me is I will look you in the eyes when I do it.
Yeah.
So
it might be from Black Widow.
I think it was a compliment. I think it was great. Yeah.
It was. I thought like not on my bingo card.
Like for sure.
Scarlett Johansson, like ever. But playing me, knowing my name, any of those things. So if you got to be on SNL to get the best,
you did it with a bang.
To get the best of the best, take that conservative badge of honor and keep going.
Yeah. Senator, there is a lot more we'd like to get into. We have to have you back. We have to hear those impressions.
Okay.
I just want to thank you, Senator Katie Black Widow Britt. Thank you for being the guest today on The Elephant in the Room.
Change the Twitter bio.
Done.
Immediately.
Done.
So, Sophie, have you ever had a nickname? I'm not really big into nicknames unless people enjoy them.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, my mom calls me Fifi. My dad calls me Sophie Lou. Okay. Mostly just Sophie Lou or Fifi.
Sophie Lou. You want to give your mom a shout out for Mother's Day?
Yes, I love my mommy so much. My mom and I are so close. I think some people would say that it's unusually close. We don't talk every day. We talk multiple times a day. We are neighbors. But yeah, my mom and I have been through a lot, and I'm gonna get emotional. She is an amazing person, my best friend. Don't know what I would do without her.
Okay. So Happy Mother's Day.
Don't make me cry.
Sophie's mom, non-Fifi, she loves you. Happy Mother's Day to my mom and the mother of my two children. Let's do a little credit here. I'll take over, Sophie. I know. The elephant in the room. If you have not subscribed, please go ahead and like or subscribe so that it arrives directly to you. You don't have to search it out. You will be alerted on your app next time we release an episode. The Elephant in the Room is brought to you under the direction of U.S. Senator John Barrasso of Wyoming. Our executive producer is Arjun Modi. Our show producer is Carly Rapp. Our technical director is Rashad Smith. And thank you for listening. Until next time, this has been The Elephant in the Room.